Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to A Turn of Events, where we help put a positive spin on the future of your business. I'm Annette Naif, the CEO and Creative Director of Naif Productions. We are a strategic event production company based in New York City, but we do events all over the world. We specialize in corporate, social, nonprofit, and weddings. We do live, hybrid, and virtual. So if you are still concerned about COVID and want to take your live event to a virtual platform or a hybrid platform, happy to talk to you about that, even just to consult if you are just have some questions about it. But it's very important to get someone who knows how to do it. We've done so many of them. Unfortunately, we had to go from a live platform to virtual, but we have been doing live. I just helped with a live event in Florida this week, and it was really amazing. There were 850 people there, and it was amazing to do a live event, and did a wedding before that. So we are doing live events. There are some restrictions. People do have to be vaccinated. A lot of times our clients want that. So we as a team have to be as well. So it's a funny, crazy world out there right now. But I'm also, I coach wedding and event planners on how to start an event planning business. If you are interested in starting your own business, or you're struggling in your current business because you just don't know what to do right now, because it is a little crazy, join me over at Event Planners Society. It is a private Facebook group for wedding and event planners only. Love my vendors, but we want to keep it just to the wedding and event planners because there's a lot of great information in there, and we don't want to be spamming and doing all kinds of things in there. So join us, Event Planners Society. My next guest is really awesome. Mark ended up, we've rescheduled so many times because there was a big storm and that all kinds of stuff went on. So we are finally here, and I'm very excited about it. Mark is Mark Ritter, and we're going to talk about how to get funding, right? So funding for your business. Mark is the CEO of MBFS and New Direction Lending. He is an expert in all things credit union and small business lending. Both organizations are owned by credit unions and designed to help credit unions fund more loans to real estate investors and small business owners in their communities. In 2002, Mark started Members First Federal Credit Union's business lending program as one person and a desk, with no policies, products, staff, systems, or business members. That program grew to be one of the top 10 in the nation in the number of loans, balances outstanding, and loan participations for federal credit unions. After 10 years at Members First, he took on the challenge of being the CEO of a business lending credit union service organization, which is CUSO. He has an amazing, I could go on. It's on and on. It's amazing what he has going on here. So we're going to talk to Mark. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark. Finally, we got together here.
Thank you for having me, and I'm glad the hurricane season is over and we can talk in some peace and quiet. So.
I know. That was really scary. So I'm glad you're safe and everything's sort of back to normal here. So you did have, there was one thing in your resume in your bio that I wanted you to talk about, and it was growing this business. I know it says here, credit unions in the company services by over 8 times, grew revenue by 15 times. And you were like the 5th CEO in 5 years of the organization. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's crazy.
Sure. You know, I was having a nice, successful career in the credit union space, and everything was going along well. Yeah. And several people that I know had this company, and they just kept burning through CEO after CEO after CEO. And I always was looking at it and had the conversations. And finally, they said, would you join us? And I was up for a challenge. And I walked into an organization that to say it wasn't doing well financially and operationally was an understatement.
Yeah.
And, you know, I walked into somewhere where I thought, you know, I was ready to go, and I'm going to, you know, tear up the world and do well. And the first 2 years I learned I spent nothing nothing on business lending or what we do. It was all customer service, organization, culture,
Right.
hiring the right people, and all, nothing that has to do with my industry or expertise. And it was just the basics of getting things right, accurate, good client relations,
Yeah.
and just the basics that we learned in kindergarten. Then we were able to grow the company to where we are today.
Well, that's great. That's really, really awesome. So, well, let's get into it because we want to talk about financing options for growing small businesses. I know that there's a lot of small businesses out there, especially, you know, in my industry. There are a lot of us are small businesses. I consider myself a small business, although I've been doing this, you know, for such a long time, but I keep my business small. I don't want, you know, a big, gigantic company to manage all of that. I got enough managing a bunch of events. So, why should businesses consider a credit union for business loans today?
Sure. Thank you. Well, a lot of people have heard the term credit union, and over 100 million people today belong to a credit union.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such a small percentage of people actually consider a credit union for their business.
Right.
And that really becomes into the first factor is many people don't even realize their credit unions or credit unions can assist them for their business. Many times you open your credit union account, maybe your parents opened it for you, or it was through an employer, or you got a car loan through a credit union, and you've just been like, whatever.
Yeah, I think my first car loan was through a credit union.
Yes, and you kind of didn't give it too much of a second thought.
Right.
But over the years, credit unions have really evolved to give commercial real estate loans, small business loans, SBA loans. And the main reason for that is kind of the collapse or the shrinking of community banks. It used to be, it used to be the First National Bank of whatever your town is.
Right.
You could walk in there and talk to people where they've gone away.
Yeah.
But if when you look at a credit union, it'll have a drive-through, an ATM. It offers a lot of the same services. My money spends the same as everybody else. But what a credit union is, it's a financial cooperative. And it's a not-for-profit financial cooperative. So really, it lends when you have an account there, those deposits are then lent out into the community. So it's really a local lender in your towns and regions and counties, and it stays local with the local deposits. But because of that structure, being a financial cooperative, we can afford to be a little bit more conversational, approachable, learn about you, learn about the story of your business, and not just lend into a box and say, yes, we do this. No, we don't. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
And you tend to be credit unions, I love my job because nobody's out there on the streets protesting against their local credit union.
Yeah, exactly.
We tend to have that reputation of being approachable and friendly. So, those are some of the cultural reasons in who we are into why we're really this untapped market of a lot of money for a lot of businesses and that potential. They just don't consider us.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm kind of guilty of that as well. So, what is the process for a small business loan through a credit union?
Sure. One of the things is that we are regulated financial institutions. Our deposits are insured. It's not some crazy off place where, you're getting money from somebody unsavory. They're regulated by the federal government. Mm-hmm. So the process, you'll find that the documentation that somebody has to provide to us, you'll find is pretty similar to any community bank or maybe even some large banks. But the difference is once you get that information, we just don't want to put it into a computer and spit out a decision. We want to understand what's going on.
Right.
And especially that first loan, sometimes you'll get some more questions where we want to learn about you as the person and who you are and what your plans are for the future. And so we're going to get those financials, and we're going to get your tax returns and a personal financial statement and a debt schedule and those types of cookie cutter things. But really from there, it's for us, it's about the conversation and seeing that we can help you now and for the future. It's a little, it's much more, it tends to be much more relationship based. And we want it to be a win-win as opposed to just, here's the money, thank you, have a good day. You know, anybody, you can get that in a lot of places.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people. I have a Facebook group, and there's about 1,500 planners, wedding and event planners in there, who are, a lot of them are just starting their businesses. So what, do you have to be in business for a certain amount of time? How does it work when you're first starting out? Because you don't really have, you don't have the reputation of being in business. And you don't have, maybe you don't have like business credit and things like that. So what advice do you have on that?
Sure. A lot of times, many credit unions, including the ones that we're owned by and work with, actively participate in the Small Business Association guaranteed loan programs. And those are really a great fit for when you're a skilled person, you know what you're doing, you know where you want to go, but you don't have that history and established and the credit and all those types of things that you want to do. If you're opening up a business, if you're buying a business, or maybe if you have a business now and you want to expand it greatly, that's the way to go through the Small Business Association program, Small Business Association. And and that used to be mountains of paperwork and weeks and months, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Today, that process has really shrinked, and the SBA is the friendliest government agency out there.
Yeah.
Now, in the event planning business, it's not like a machine shop where you have all of this equipment and hard assets. And so it's more of a service-oriented business. The other way that we help out is we actually started a program called New Direction Lending that's really focused on service-oriented businesses. Because what we found is that maybe the more service-oriented you are and the less collateral you have, what we found is a lot of people going to online lenders. And, you can get we've seen the ads, you've probably seen the pop-up ads, and you can get a loan, real fast, quick, easy, but you're paying 35% interest rate.
Right.
And the terms are incredible. So New Direction Lending is really our option. I call it the credit union friendly version of the online loan for those people who aren't buying a building, who aren't buying massive pieces of, or you're not buying a piece of real estate or a large truck or something like that. So we have options, whether you're buying a building, whether you're starting up, whether you're an established business. The credit union is really here. Since a cooperative is here to make the members succeed. So depending, we do small truck loans and we do commercial real estate loans of over $10 million, and we do everything in between. So we really have a lot of pieces, and it's all focused about helping the business succeed.
Okay, great. So you mentioned SBA loans. What is an SBA loan and what's the process like?
Sure. The SBA loan is a government guaranteed loan program. And that typically, if your business maybe has some bumps in the road, or there's a structure where they wouldn't do it traditionally, just the credit union gives you the money and you can pay it back. Maybe it's that startup business.
Yeah.
And what happens is we issue the loan, and the government issues us typically about an 80% guarantee on that loan. It could be a little bit higher or lower depending on the loan. And that allows us to make loans to more businesses. Now, it's a government program, so there's government forms.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people may have had their first experience with the SBA through the PPP loan program. That
Mhm.
was a little bit of a different animal, but now that that program's over, the government is issuing people these SBA loans, and let's face it, a lot of businesses, small businesses, maybe had some bumps in the road and struggled over the past year. So it's a
A lot
great
of people did.
option. It's a
Yeah.
great option to revitalize your business.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned PPP, and I actually know that you were involved in a lot of that. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I know I got both. There were 2 times you could apply. I did get both, but I also know that there's some rules with getting the forgiveness. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It was, it was the craziest time for my life in my life.
Yeah.
And as difficult as it was for small businesses to go through the process, it was even harder for the lenders
Yeah.
because the rules were constantly changing. But the program is exhausted as far as getting new loans. But so a lot of people, millions and millions of people have these loans still outstanding.
Yeah.
And if you haven't received or started up the forgiveness process, you want to make sure you do that. The
Yeah.
one thing you don't want to do is ignore it, because that will just cause problems down the road. You're going to end up with a loan. Even if your business is, shut down, consult your attorneys, get your practice. But the big difference and the big news for everybody who has a PPP loan is you had to contact your lender, you had to contact the servicing agent and go through all this paperwork. Now you can apply for forgiveness directly with the SBA,
Right.
and they actually will send that to the lender.
Right.
So it's gotten a lot easier, but about 20 to 25% of the loan, people have kicked back questions at the SBA. It's crucially important that you follow up with that to get your loan fully forgiven. But the SBA portal is great. If people haven't started that process, go on the SBA website and you can do that directly.
Yeah, I know I had to. So my bank, I believe I got an email from my bank which said I could, giving me instructions on what to do. I clicked in. I had some trouble getting into it, but once I got onto the SBA portal, it was pretty simple. You just, they want to see that you spent the money towards your payroll and things like that. So, and then they forgave it. So it was, but if you got 2 loans, you have to apply for both. You have to 2 times, correct. And the first one has to be forgiven first, or whatever they come back with, and then you can go to the next one. So, but yeah, you don't want to ignore that, even though the loan is going to be like 1% or 2% or whatever the low, you don't want that because they can forgive it. So as long as you show that you used it towards your payroll and the things you were supposed to, they will forgive it. So just don't let that go.
Exactly.
Super important to not have that laying over your head, especially when you have a small business and you're trying to keep going, So what are the keys to successfully getting a business investment real estate loan?
Sure. One of the things is I always say people tend to look at banks and credit unions as this homogenous industry. They apply for it and we get money, but it's really a lot closer to shopping for a restaurant than it is just a homogenous industry and buying corn somewhere. Restaurants, you can go to the convenience store and get the fastest, quickest, cheapest food off the shelf. You can go to McDonald's, you can go to a nice independent place, and you can go sit at the best steakhouses in New York City. You're all getting fed, you're eating, you're getting the same, you're all eating food, but how you do, not everybody is the same looking to sell the same meal, and banks and credit unions are the same. Some people do it quick and cheap, and some people don't. Not everybody does everything to every single type of loan. So a lot of times when people apply for a loan, they say no, and they get frustrated and they go get something quick, cheap, and fast and very expensive. Where you have to make sure the people you're asking for, they're in the marketplace. They do your type of businesses. There's banks that really only want to deal with doctors and lawyers. There's banks that only deal with make mortgages, and a lot of times people say they do things, but it's really not there. You have to find people who are in your marketplace, and that's talking to your friends. That's talking to other types of industry. A lot of times it's their website or online reviews to really make sure you're talking to the right people. And there's always money available for every business.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of how much you want to pay for it. And always the cheapest, quickest, easiest one can put you in a debt cycle and never get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's for sure.
Yep.
So what are the biggest mistakes that small businesses make when they're looking for financing?
Sure. It's really, you have to be organized, and you have to understand who you're talking to. And when they ask you questions, understand why they're asking this.
Right.
Ultimately, credit unions and even banks, they make money by lending it out and having people pay it back. So they want to understand you.
Right.
And the first loan with somebody, it's like going on a first date. That first one is always the most awkward in getting to know people. So, and it's always the most difficult. And, we're going to ask questions, and the questions that we ask all center back into, we want to feel good that you can repay us. So, and that second loan is much, much easier.
Right.
So it's nice to be organized. If there's a checklist, and, pretty much any lender, if you say, what do you need? They're going to give you a checklist and a list of items. Right. Don't give them 3 out of the 5 and say, you'll figure it out. Yeah. Usually if there's 5 things they need, get them the 5 things they need. And if you don't have it, ask them if there's have that conversation.
Right.
And if somebody won't have that conversation with you, on both sides, well, that's a pretty good red flag that the process is going to be difficult and they might not be interested in your type of business or working with you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the marketplace like for getting a business investment real estate loan today? And also, are your interest rates for a credit union the same as what you would get from a bank?
Sure. So interest rates are so low today that there's a little bit of the same, a little bit different, some higher, some lower. Where the credit unions tend to shine is on the terms that we give people. Many times your fees will be lower. And also, we don't have prepayment penalties. So, rates are really low today. So it's a good time to borrow. And what's happened since the beginning of the pandemic is lending institutions have been flooded with money and deposits.
Yeah.
They have money and we want to lend it out. And that's because that's how we make our money. And all of this government money people have put in their accounts at the credit unions. And for every dollar of deposits, credit unions typically lend out about 80 to 85 cents. So when this money comes in, they're looking for people like yourself to put it out on the street and make those new relationships. So they've never been more open to new clients and having that conversation of bringing a relationship to you. And the nice thing about that is, credit unions are typically as good of a deal on the consumer side as they are on the business side. Everybody, like you said, everybody knows they can get a car loan through a credit union.
Yeah.
So it might be, it's a great time to not only look at that credit union for their business, but to see what else they can do as well.
Yeah. And do you have to be, so like if you're in New Jersey or Pennsylvania and I wanted to get a loan through you in that area, but I live in New York, can I do that?
Sure. Great question. When I was growing up, my dad was a member of the credit union at the factory he worked at. And a lot of people have that impression of, if you're a teacher, this is the teachers credit union or the factory credit union or the government workers.
Right.
In the last 20 years, credit unions have really opened up their membership. And there's two types of credit unions. There's community chartered, where they serve a specific geographic area. And then there's association or employer-based, where you have to be a member of a particular employer group or an association. Mm-hmm. But those have really become very open. So the odds are that if you're driving by a credit union in your region, in your county, I would say there's about a 98% chance you could go in and open an account. Now, there are credit unions that lend nationally or in multi-states, but I always like to keep it local, and keep that. So, I would say first check out those people in the counties that you live in. Right. And go in and talk to them if you've never had that conversation. And it's a virtual assurance that you'll be able to open an account in there.
Yeah. Plus, I think it's important to build a relationship. I mean, we obviously do everything virtual now these days, so I don't think it really matters to go in face to face. Because years ago, when I was a member of a credit union, it was local. You went in there. It wasn't like if I had traveled to California from New York, then I wouldn't have been able to go to the bank if I needed to go. But this was many, many years ago. So I'm sure they have an online, way to bank and stuff like that.
What I find is very few people use their branch.
Yeah.
But if you really are in a pinch, you're going to want to know you can actually talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Now, credit unions today have all the same amenities as any bank. You can have your online app, you can have your online banking, you have the app on your phone, you can make deposits on your phone. So you're really, if you live in New Jersey and go to California, you can use the ATM networks out there. Yeah. You make your virtual banking, and it's become so homogenous throughout the United States. You can have access to your money anywhere you like.
Yeah. Well, good. Because we always want that, right?
Yes.
If you're traveling. Okay. So if a business is struggling or having a rough patch, how should they approach their lender? Because that's usually when someone is going to get money, is because they're struggling and something's going on, right?
Yes. The first thing that I could say is don't ignore the problem. It is okay. We would, as lenders, would much rather talk with you when your loan is current and you're going to have some problems upcoming.
Yeah.
And the first thing that we see that causes us problems and heartache is that people avoid their taxes and try to punt those down the road, whether it's your real estate taxes or your payroll taxes or your personal taxes or whatever it could be. And they try to use that as a way to save some cash.
Yeah.
And there's really, what as a lender, what I look at it is two different ways. Is what you have an event where, we just had a talk with somebody yesterday who had a heart attack and it really laid them up for a few months. Yeah. And now their business is getting back on track.
Right. That's
an event. That's a one-time thing. Or is your business inherently struggling where, I had a business once and it was on a main road and the state came and built a big guardrail right down the middle of the business. So half the customers couldn't get to the business anymore.
Oh man.
That's bad luck. That's kind of a permanent thing that I can't fix.
Right.
And you really, the more active you are in talking to that person before it becomes a delinquency issue,
right,
the more options and flexibility they have to try to get this worked out and working through a loan.
yeah,
You know, like I said, it's in everybody's best interest to help you out and keep your business going. You know, if you're a truck driver and I come and repossess your truck, I'm out of business as much as you are. So
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Okay, so I need money and I don't want the hassle of going through a bank or credit union. Should I get a fast business loan online?
avoid that at all costs.
Why is that?
What we find is that reason. The first thing is many times the terms of these loans aren't fully disclosed to people, and sometimes they charge all of the interest up front,
Right.
or they have a decent interest rate and an exorbitant origination fee, and it almost becomes like a payday loan for people, where once you get it, you have to keep going and refinancing and getting fee after fee after fee.
Oh my gosh.
And it really it just puts people in a nonstop spiral.
Yeah.
And that's you know, we have the credit union friendly version of that. The first thing we're going to do is seeing if we can help you traditionally. But if you need money in a couple of days, that's why we started New Direction Lending, and new is spelled NU, New Direction Lending, and to help people and avoid these online lenders that you know, some of the terms that they charge almost makes the mafia blush. It really becomes and since it's a completely unregulated industry,
Yeah.
it's not, they can really charge and do whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and are you able to take like, what about refinancing or, yeah, like if you wanted to consolidate some of your loans, and how are you guys with that? How are credit unions with that?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of our business is refinance. Our number one use of funds for New Direction Lending is refinancing another debt that you got. Maybe you took out and had to put some business debt on a credit card, or you did take out one of these online lenders. A tremendous amount in today's world, a tremendous amount of loans that we do is refinancing. And sometimes when people take a business loan out, they have a prepayment penalty. But rates are so low today, even if you're locked into that prepayment penalty, you know, rates aren't going to go down anymore. I'm not an expert, but there's really not much more room for them to go.
Right.
So if you haven't refinanced your business debt in today's world, talk to somebody about doing that, because it's never been better.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And what about student loans?
Sure. Credit unions do a lot of student loans. You know, I'm always a big fan of get that as low as you can and pay that down as quick as possible. You know, attack those student loan debts and keep that moving, and try to, you know, as crazy. I lend money for a living, and I'm about as debt adverse as possible.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, you know, take out that business debt as a last chance when you really need to grow your business, but don't look to take out debt just for the purpose of taking your debt. You know, always try to run your business as debt-free as possible.
I love that advice. So on that's where we're going to end it, because that's great advice. I have not used a credit card in many, many, many years. So I try to, but it struggles. You know, in the beginning, sometimes you have to have debt to get started and grow the business. So I try to stay away from that as much as possible. So Mark, thank you so much. This has been awesome. How can people find you?
Sure. We're very active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Mark Ritter, or Member Business Financial Services, or New Direction Lending. Check us out on LinkedIn, or you can go to our website, mbfs.org.
Yeah. So we put the link for you in LinkedIn, and that's NU, for the name of the business. So thank you so much again. This has been really great. I'm so happy that we got to get together. You've got me sparked here. I might be contacting you because I might want to be doing some consolidating here, but thank you so much. And you guys reach out to him if you're looking to get some loans here. New Direction Lending, nudirectionlending.com is really where you can go and find Mark on LinkedIn. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back soon. Mark, again, thank you. Appreciate your time. Great information. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.